Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today on this beautiful sunny afternoon. I know how hard it is to kind of tuck away uh, when we have Mother Nature smiling upon us like that. But thank you today. We're going to wait a couple minutes while a few more participants join us. We but while you're there, I'm going to invite you to look in the chat. We have asked you just to drop a positive practice that you currently, or your school, or someone in your school is currently engaging in that really builds a culture of um, emotionally and physically safe, creating a physically and emotionally safe environment. If you could pop that right into the chat. Following this session, I will tell you we are being recorded so that we can then post it on our MEAC website, and people can view it asynchronously down the road. And you will also receive a follow-up email that has some of these ideas that folks are generating. If you're looking for a new practice, you can just reference back to what your colleagues have said. So let's just give it 1 or 2 more minutes, and then we'll get rolling. Thinking about some of the things that really make those students feel like they're welcomed, and thinking about thinking about what are some of the practices. Sometimes they're practices that we don't even realize we're engaging in, but they mean all the difference in the world. Okay, well, in the good interest of time, I'm going to move us along right now. And again, I would like to welcome you to the first Maine Engagement and Attendance Center office hour. We're going to be focusing on Tier 1 evidence-based strategies to support increased attendance. From September through May, we are going to be exploring practices to assist in establishing the foundational conditions which will really allow regular attendance to flourish. Whether you're a classroom educator, an instructional coach, perhaps a support staff, family member, administrator, or community partner, if you want to drop that in the chat, you can do that as well so we can get a better idea of who are our participants. These office hours are going to be designed to offer the practical insights, the research behind them, and next steps for implementation. Again, always with the idea of how can we increase attendance in Maine schools. So let's see, I'd like to start off by taking a quick look at our agenda. All right. First, we have some introductions. Some of you I'm already familiar with. My name is Sarah Nelson. I work with the Office of School and Student Supports, and I've had the good fortune of being an educator in Mid-Coast Maine schools for almost 30 years. And in 2023, I switched roles and I joined the Office of School and Student Supports, specifically in the Climate, Culture, and Resilience team. I came on as the social emotional learning implementation specialist, and I've kind of morphed my role into student engagement specialist with a hat focusing on increased attendance. In this role, I provide professional development for schools. I assist with the implementation of initiatives that are supported through our office. Some of you may be very familiar with BAR or PBIS or the regulated classroom. Hopefully, if you've not yet signed up, we have 3 more sessions still available. Virtual in January. We have Belfast coming up I think it's September 22nd and 23rd. You can go to the regulated classroom website to see where they are. And then we do still have a few spots available in November in Auburn. So I am here to provide supports for educators. And today we have a content expert, my colleague, Aubrie Howard. And Aubrie Howard also, who is in the Office of School and Student Support, she joined us just this past summer. And she is our Student Success and Wellbeing Specialist and the SEA Foster Care Point of Contact. So some of those tricky questions that you may be having, especially around attendance with some of the students that have more complex attendance challenges, maybe going in Aubrey's direction. She has a decade of experience working in and with schools and communities across New England. And when she was out west, she was an experiential educator. She holds a master's degree in elementary education and is a licensed school counselor. So we welcome her aboard. She provides professional development, technical assistance, and guidance to support mental health and alternative education in the state of Maine. She also serves as the state education agency foster care point of contact, as I said, overseeing the educational stability of students in foster care. That is a mouthful. And might I say, if you've not yet had a chance to enjoy her office hours, it's really well worth the watch. Ooh, let's see, where did we just go with? So I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the highlights of the MEAC office hour series that we have that will be, as I said, from September through May. You can see we have a number of different Tier 1 evidence-based practices that, again, are the foundational elements that we feel are going to truly support you in increasing attendance. You can come to every single one of them. You can check to see which ones might be more applicable to your role in schools, but we'd love to have you join us and just take a look. It's going to give you an opportunity to, as I said, look at evidence-based practices. And in this very dynamic environment that we are working in right now, sometimes it's nice to have the evidence, like the actual research behind it. We will be able to provide that for you in case you have somebody, maybe you'd like to share it with your school board. Maybe you have some parents that might be interested in knowing a little bit more about why are you engaging in the practices? Because research shows us this is how we can impact student success the most. Today's focus is on creating emotionally and physically safe environments. And we are going to have an opportunity to hear from Aubrie a little bit about what is it, and maybe are there any stories of success she's familiar with, and why does it really matter? We will then have an opportunity to have a conversation with colleagues in breakout groups. What's working for you? Maybe I could snag that idea, tweak it a little bit, and have it fit the culture of my school. Finally, we'll come back together, and this is the part I think is going to be super, super helpful to you. We're going to come back. We're going to share things that maybe we heard either in our presentation with Aubrie and myself or in our breakout rooms. What's something that maybe you could start doing, implementing? What could you implement in this next month? A practice that kind of resonated in your ears. And then we're going to just bombard you with a plethora of resources. Again, you will receive an email that is a summary of all of this. You will have live links. Today, when we are in our presentation, we won't probably go into every single link, but we'll keep rolling. And you can go back and access them yourselves. So what is it that the Maine Engagement and Attendance Center is doing? Oh my gosh, we have a great website that launched in July. Again, I keep going back to evidence-based Tier 1 practices. We're really encouraging schools to address the root causes, not just the symptoms of chronic absence, which will ultimately result in academic improvement. We're also here to provide the resources that'll make it that much easier for you. So here we are, figuring out how everything can come together in a way that impacts you, works for you and your school community, leading to increased attendance in schools. You may have seen us in some of these. These are some highlights of our activities this summer for the Maine Engagement and Attendance Center. We went to we've been all around the state sharing our ideas. You may have even heard the governor's proclamation as September for Attendance Awareness Month. All kinds of great things coming together. what we realize is attendance is achieved through teamwork. One person is not responsible. One person cannot have the impact that we need. So we're really looking at strategies that engage student actions, family actions, educator actions, administrative actions, and bringing in community partnerships. So this month, we're focusing on creating emotionally and physically safe environments, and you'll be able to see different practices that everyone on the team can bring to the table. Bring your expertise so that you can make a true impact. With that, I would like to pass things to Aubrie as she kind of walks you through, why are we here? Why is this a tier 1 evidence-based practice? How will it impact you? So Aubrie, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah, for the introduction, and hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. So during our time together, we're going to be talking about how do we create a positive school climate that supports that physical and emotionally safe environment, and which is especially important during our dynamic and heightened time that we're in. So when we start to think about school climate, we're thinking about the interconnectedness of all of these different touch points with students, with staff, with families, and with community partners who support the work in and with our school communities, and how they impact the different domains of the academic, the social, the emotional, and what does that look like? And so if we were to do a temperature read on your school, I would want you to think about, does my school currently, does the climate feel cold and icy? Does it feel hot and suffocating, like there's not enough room to really breathe? Or does it feel very comfortable? Do your students feel safe? Do they feel valued? Do they feel respected? And so I just want you to think about that as we spend our time together. And because the research has been going on for years, talking about how positive school climates improve students' academics, their mental health, their behavior, and we're here today to also talk about attendance and that engagement piece. It even has long-term health benefits. So a healthy school climate is really that foundation for all learning and developing. And part of that is that sense of belonging. So I have another question that I'm going to have you all think about. And so I want you to think about when you were in a space where you felt like you belonged. And so maybe you could write that down on a scrap piece of paper, or maybe on a Google Doc, and just think about, what was that space? What were those feelings of belonging? What did that look like? Was there a start to that feeling of belonging? Did it take some time to get there? What about the other individuals in the room around you? Who fostered that connection? Was it one person? Was it the community? And as you're thinking about that, I also want you to think about, what was a time that you've been in a space where you felt like you did not belong? Again, think about how those feelings showed up. When did it start? How long did it last? What reminders and experiences did you feel that made you feel like you did not belong? What fostered that disconnection? And I just want you to hold on to those pieces of feeling like you belonged in that space and feeling like you did not belong. And when we talk about the sense of belonging, we're talking about school climate. We're talking about, we need that to foster that sense of belonging, to create that positive school climate. And ultimately, this has to start with ourselves. Before we can hold others accountable, we have to look within and see, how are we showing up in these spaces? And when we're thinking about that sense of belonging, it's that feeling of acceptance, being invited to participate, and having the opportunity to show up as yourself. And this does not just happen in one moment, in one day, in one piece of time, but this happens continuously throughout the school year. There's these moments that we're building upon. And I'm not sure if anyone here is familiar with these 9 moments of belonging. This is created by Susie Wise, who's a professor of design at Stanford University. She's the author of Design for Belonging, How to Build Inclusion and Collaboration in Your Communities, also in coordination with the Othering and Belonging Institute of UC Berkeley. They were discussing ways of how do we design belonging? What does that look like? Because as I said, that sense of belonging doesn't just happen in one moment, but happens in many moments and is a continuously we're working towards creating that sense of belonging. And so I'm just going to go through each of these 9 moments of belonging briefly. And when we think of, I'm going to start with that invitation. When we think about an invitation, it's not just that date and that time telling you, hey, like come to school. It's setting the expectation of how we want individuals to show up in that learning environment. What is their role in that learning environment? And then we have that entering. Many of you can probably think about a moment when you've entered a room and you started scanning the room, thinking about, is there anyone here who looks like me, sounds like me? We can start to feel on high alert. There could be this thing called stereotype threat, where we're like, who around here I can connect with? And that is such a pivotal moment in schools when we have that entering moment. It could be at the start of the school year, it could be a new student, it could be a family entering your school. And so how are we setting up that stage for that? And then there's participation, contributing, and flowing. And when we think about those 3 areas, when we think about participation, we want to think about, did I actually get to participate? What was I saying? Did it contribute to that information? Did it contribute to the group? Was there this feedback cycle that when I shared my thoughts, maybe some change was able to happen with that? And that flowing piece is when we are able to naturally build in those cycles for participation and for contributing to allow for things to change. Because as we're building our community, we're going to start to take notice of different voices and different styles, and it's going to take us a bit to get into that flow. There's also this code switching, which I think is really important, because when we think about code switching, we're thinking about how it's moving between different aspects of identity. And when that moment, when I said that entering, we're scanning that room. What are those spaces and those visual cues that we have in our school climate that allows for individuals to understand that code switching can happen? And where is that space that allows for individuals to be themselves, to share their stories, their culture, their languages, their experiences and ways of learning? And when we say positive school climate, it doesn't have to always be positive. There is this dissent piece. We're thinking about, how did we create a structure to allow for critical feedback? When we can have students or family be like, hey, this didn't work. This communication style isn't working for me. And to have that dialogue. So there's that space, so we're not building that wall between the individuals in our school climate. And repair is equally as important. We are humans, we make mistakes, things happen. But what are those systems that we have in school to support that repair? And then diverging and exiting. Oftentimes when we think about school culture, we're thinking about that invitation. We're not thinking about the end. But each day the school day comes to a close. We have weekends, we have vacations, we have students who might graduate, who might move from elementary to middle, the middle to high school. So what are those systems that we have in place to keep those rituals, to keep those spaces and those connections going, while also naming, like, people are moving on? And so when we think about these 9 moments of belonging, we're thinking about the design. What are the components that make up our school climate? And how do we make the individuals, the students, the staff, the family members, the community partners to feel emotionally and physically safe? What does that look like? And so over these next 2 slides, we're talking about, part of this office hours is talking about those tier 1 supports. And so I've linked different resources just to get you going, to start the conversation. And it sounds like people are already talking about greetings in the chat. So things, I know you're already doing things in your school. So this isn't an exhaustive list, but if you want to connect afterwards, I'm more than happy to engage and talk further about these different areas. But just to go back to this messages for home, the few resources I highlighted here were multilingual translation services and guides to build trust with multilingual families. There's a great PDF printable sheet that you can have to see if any of your families need translation services. You can just show it to them and you can immediately start the conversation on a note being like, I know, I see you, I'm here, I understand. The greetings, there's PBIS has 5 simple greetings. I think that's really important, as you all have stated in here. And then there's also these classroom norms and expectations. The 2 pieces that I linked were activities that you can do with your students to co-create those classroom norms and those expectations, which is really allowing that student voice and to make them feel like they're as an equal partnership as the teacher or maybe as the principal in that space. I highlighted additionally, some different student voice resources with the Maine Youth Action. It's a statewide initiative that allows students to co-collaborate with adults to bring up issues and challenges. There's also the Youth Peer Support statewide network that really focuses on mental health and substance use and allows individuals to get that peer support as well as that advocacy piece. And then Out Maine Youth Programs has different opportunities for LGBTQ students to have space.
Aubrie, before we go to the next slide, I just really want to hone in on the messaging that I'm hearing you say. Again, you're going back to this is a team event. I hear you talking about things that it's not all the educator, it's not on the educator's shoulders. If we split it up between administration, community, the families, and we give actionable steps, hot diggity, that's where we're seeing our greatest impact. Thank you for really bringing that to light. We'll continue with some more ideas.
Definitely. Yeah, that interconnected piece that I was talking about early, we need to make sure everyone has that voice and that opportunity to generate that school culture. There's also some great resources on roles and schedules when we're thinking about that invitation, that piece when we're starting off the school year, or maybe I know we're a few weeks in. It's never too late to think about what is that routine in my school day? What is the celebrations that we're having? I know Sharon highlighted that they once a month they go and they just celebrate. And so that is a schedule that your students know, like once a month we're going to go, we're going to celebrate, we're going to show up for one another. So those are just some other resources about how do you create that? What does that look like in your school? There's also the physical space. What does our environment look like? I tried to really highlight resources that allowed for student voice to be part of this conversation, that co-design your classroom with your students. Again, thinking about what works, what does not work. Outdoor learning, that is a piece of my background, and I'm always advocating for how do we break down some of those walls of the classroom and get students and staff outside, because not only is it linked to positive mental health, but it also allows for us to engage with our different senses that help students who might think differently or just provide that space to access different areas of learning. There's also a great resource about creating calming spaces in schools and classrooms. And part of that correlates back to those roles and schedules. When do students know how to access those calming spaces? What are some of those classroom norms and expectations from the other slides that you have set up to allow students to regulate themselves, to be able to be ready to learn, so that we're not always having to send students away, but if we're able to foster that in the classroom, and be part of that norm and co-regulate together, then we're able to continue to keep that engagement happening.
One of the things I
There's
keep hearing from I'm going to just add on to that, calming spaces in the school and the classroom. One of the things that we're hearing is as students and adults are becoming more aware of the importance of regulation, and as you said, co-regulation, what we're finding is some schools are actually thinking about these as like a regulation station, because some of our students do not need to be any calmer than they already are. Maybe they need a little bit more energizing, or maybe they just so as they learn what it is they need so they can be their most um oh, I just lost the word, they could be at their most optimal learning, um they will start choosing different items. I've heard of some classrooms where once this was all laid out and kids started were engaged in the process of understanding corners, regulation corners, um, kids started bringing in tools, and they might say, hey, I brought this in because I thought it might really help people calm, or I brought this in because when I am really exhausted, this is something I do. So again, that agency, allowing students. The last thing I'm going to say about that whole area is sometimes people think it's just for littles. Sometimes they're like, oh my gosh, you can't have it in an early elementary classroom because they're not old enough to understand it. These are actually practices that we have seen enormous success in pre-K through 12. Yes, you do need to differentiate what's in those areas, but thinking about it, what could you do just to tweak it a little bit so that it fits the needs of your people?
definitely, and I think that's such an important point. And I've worked in high schools and I've seen wellness spaces which have been run by students to help provide some of that either re-energizer or maybe it's a calm down space. And so that can really look differently. And I think that's important. It's not just for one grade, as well as for adults too in the school building. Also wanted to highlight some of those school and community resources. There's the Maine Regional Cares Team, which is broken up into different three regions across the state of Maine. It's a great partnership with a bunch of community partners who are discussing different challenges and situations, as well as resource sharing across the state.
Sorry about that.
Um,
That
oh,
was a
that's
mistake.
okay. And then there's this one pager that has a bunch of different resources to support for families in Maine. So I would check that out. Quick, easy to have on your desk in case of something that comes up. Because when we're again thinking about school climate, it's all of those little pieces that we're thinking about. And restorative practice, when I mentioned in those 9 moments of belonging, is thinking about do we have that space to talk about some of the challenges? Do we have that space to repair harm? And Stacy Barlow's been doing a great job across the state and creating a culture of care. So implementing those restorative practices, which does start at that tier one space, because we're thinking about how can we all sit together and vocalize how we're feeling and what we're thinking, which takes a while. It can be uncomfortable to have those conversations if you're not used to sitting and sharing your feelings and just doing a highlight of maybe how do you like eggs? Do you like them scrambled or fried? Thinking about those tier one, it's like let's build that community before we move on to those next layers.
And I will tell you, those of you that have not yet had the opportunity to connect with Stacy Barlow, her contact information will be in our, I guess I'm going to call it like a resource waterfall that will be coming shortly. So that's in the next few slides.
Awesome. And I'm curious, is there any questions from anyone out there on any of those different areas? Feel free to put them in the chat or unmute if there are questions. But to wrap this up, thinking about that school climate, since I use some of Susie Wise's design tools, I really wanted to highlight her. And she says, this quote that I felt like really resonated with what we're discussing today. If we can feel safe, seen, and shape belonging, we can turn schools, organizations, and groups into places where everyone, especially those furthest from opportunity, can thrive. And as we think about that, what is that landscape that we're creating? What does that look like? What are those feelings? And again, it's a journey, it's a process, it's not just one person. It takes a team to really dive into this.
Fantastic, Aubrey. That's exactly what we were looking for. Like, what's the research behind it? Why is it so important that we really focus on this? And so, what we have in our agenda, we had set aside time, about 10 minutes for us to break into small groups. I'm noticing that we have a small population. A number of people have texted me directly to let me know that they are on the road, and while they're listening, they're unable to speak up and share at this time because they're on the road. Again, I'm going to let you know that this is being recorded. It will be on our website, the MEAC website, so that you can easily access. But what we had talked about is taking a couple minutes to speak directly with your colleagues and think about, like, what are some of the things you're trying that are working. What I would ask is, Aubrey, how are you feeling about this? Should we maybe move on to the next piece and just kind of jump ahead with sharing some resources, or should we? I do know that I've heard from a handful of people that are actually with us still that are saying, can't quite um, share right now. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I know it's the after school time, so we're all moving and navigating all the different life after school pickups and other things. Yeah, so I would just encourage you to again hold space for thinking about what are you doing? What is one tool that we shared, or maybe it's a tool that you're already leaning into, such as those greetings. Is that working? Is everyone doing that? Notice in your building who is showing up in that moment. Are there anyone, is there anyone missing from that? Anyone who could hear in your school why this is important? Why is a greeting important? Why is one of these tier one practices important? And so I just encourage you to think about that. What can you take back to your school? What can you reflect on that you're already doing? And then again, if you need any additional support, do not hesitate to reach out to us.
Aubrey, I always love that statement that goes something like, if when people start seeing the success you are having at your end of the hallway, they're going to become curious. What is it that you're doing that is really, really affecting student success? And be ready to share. Give them the old elevator pitch. What is it that's working well? And maybe why are you doing it? So, well, then let's go on and just kind of take a look at some of the things that maybe we would put out there for you to consider implementing before we meet again. Our next time coming together will be October 16th. Um, Again, going back to that, greeting students daily at the door, by name, in an engaged and unbusy manner. Perhaps you have a visual on the side of your door, and students get to choose, how do you want to be greeted? What I would encourage you to do is say, hey, listen, I'll greet you, but you have to greet me in the same manner. I laugh when I talk about, that's the way I learned to floss. I did not floss well, but the kids, I think they would try to get me doing all these crazy dance moves just because it kept things light. But is it a bow? Is it a handshake? We do know you don't necessarily need to look kids in the eye. You don't need to touch them. Some kids, you will learn, love to have a hug. You need to look at your school policy for that. But is it something it's not, back in the day, we used to say if a kiddo didn't look you in the eye, then they were being disrespectful. Well, we've learned so much about brains now, and we've learned about, again, that physical and emotional safety. Have them choose what they want to do. Perhaps it's a bow, perhaps it's just a wink, but it gives you an opportunity. When we say the idea of greeting students at the door, I'm not talking about being on your cell phone, trying to take attendance, trying to take lunch count. I'm talking about look at them, take a quick scan, For me, it was always an opportunity to check and see, oh, dag and nabbit, I see a bruise there. And you may want to or maybe you see the face that didn't get washed this morning, but it has the tear streaked face. So maybe take a look at that. Ask, hey, how'd your football game go last night? Did you get your driver's license? How's your little brother doing? Those are the things that are going to give the connection, the feeling of belonging. I see you. I hear you. I value you. That's where the big bang comes from. So we encourage you, this is a resource you could use if you wanted to create a visual for kids to choose as they enter the room. Another idea is, again, going back to the opportunity to conduct a school climate survey. And PBIS has a phenomenal resource, and this is the link that could allow you. Sometimes, I shouldn't say that, but I'm going to say it anyway. Sometimes we don't have to complete an entire survey to realize, oh my gosh, this is what we're doing really well. But heck, that's an area we could improve on. When we talk about PBIS practices, it is paramount that your entire system is on board with it, because what we know is if you have a few outliers, that's where things start maybe not being as impactful. Relationship mapping, and this goes back to that community, involving your community partners. What do you have for resources that sometimes we just don't even think about? This is a great tool that could help assist with that. MIAS. So MIAS, Maine Integrated Youth Health Survey, and this is some pretty serious data that helps you look at the students in your schools. Aubrie, can you help me remember MIAS data? Is that grade 5 through 12?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's done biannually. So it was last done, I believe, this past school year, and the results should be out hopefully by late winter is my estimate.
Excellent. So what's nice about this is if you have already set up your login profile, you'll be able to jump right on and get information specifically regarding your own school. You don't have access statewide, but you don't need that. This is the information that is the students in your schools. If you have not yet had the opportunity to set that up, we've included the contact information for Haley Pulowski, who is the MIAS coordinator, and she can help you. She'll talk you right through it. Other resources, again, I'm going to say, knock on the door of Miss Aubrie Howard. We've already seen she is just a fountain of information, as well as our colleague, Signe Lynch. They both work within the parameters of students that really benefit from us looking at, I'm going to talk about attendance, instead of looking at it and saying, oh, they never come to school. Let's take a look at the barriers. What is it that is stopping them from being able to successfully access our learning opportunities? And both Aubrie and Signe have A, great insight, but B, phenomenal resources to help assist in that. I'm not going to lie, that is really, really, really tough to navigate. So we've got two experts right here you can draw upon. Also, I told you we would have Stacy Barlow's contact. Here she is. And she has, as Aubrie referred to, she has coaches all throughout the entire state. I do believe she has geographic representation in every single county across the state. So this is like, these are not people from away telling you how to run programming for restorative practices, but it's people that you become familiar with because they come from your specific region. Coming right up around the corner in November, Courtney Angelosanti is hosting the PBIS annual conference that will be held at the Augusta Civic Center November 13th. If you've not yet had an opportunity to sign up for that, I have included the link there. Again, it's 8:30 to 4 o'clock and again, this is just unbelievable resources and experts guiding you through some phenomenal practices. Again, MTSS, we're talking about tier 1, starting with that 80% of your population typically, how can we put foundational practices in place that impacts everyone in your classroom? Yes, of course, we're going to have some students that might need a little bit more additional support. That's about your 15-ish percent. And that would be smaller groups. And those might be students that you would have personal attendance plans that you create for. And of course, yes, we do have a tier 3 that might have more intensive needs. And that might be where Aubrie and Signe can point you in directions to help assist with that. I am going to put a plug in for you to attend our future MEAC office hours. You use the same registration link that you already accessed today. Next month, October 16th, we will be exploring building routine, relationships, and relevance. And we talk about the fact that our data is showing us one of the reasons students are struggling with chronic absenteeism is skyrocketing levels of anxiety. What is one of the greatest ways to help support students with the feelings of anxiety? Routine, consistency. Do we have any control over that at school? You bet we do. So let's take a look at some ways to practically impact our systems so that we can support these students. And then we have, this is a great, do you remember the resilience network that Kinney Tinkham used to chair? Kinney has left us, but we have a new group of dynamic individuals coming into support, and they've shifted the name. It is now the Maine Youth Thriving. And they've put together, I cannot tell you strongly enough how much I loved these videos. It's a 4-part, 90-second public service announcement. And what it is it's actually students, and they're talking about their public service announcements that they had professionally crafted. This project is amplifying the student voices. It's helping to share with caring adults and peers what is it that we actually need so that we can experience well-being, and how can we feel a part of schools. That sense, again, you see me, you hear me, you value me. We do know that students that have these feelings are much more apt to attend school, and certainly academics will thrive. For more information about that, you can also access their website here, Maine Youth Thriving. Dynamic resources there.
And to add to that, Jess Anderson posted in the chat that Maine Youth Thriving is having a summit on October 10th from 8 to 9 or 8 to 5. It's Restore Connection, Reignite Purpose, Reimagine Possibility. So there's the link in there. And she also noted that if you have been identified for additional school support, you get 3 free school level registrations to the Maine PBIS conference.
I love that, Jess. Thank you for adding that for folks. And of course, we have my shameless plug for everyone. If you've not done it yet, we may get out a couple minutes early today, just so that I'm giving you the opportunity to sign up for the Count Me In newsletter. At the Maine Department of Education, we have the very, very good fortune of being able to partner with Jess Anderson, who is the executive director of Count Me In. She is working with many schools. I think at this point she's working with 24 schools across the state directly, but her resources, you're going to see her popping up all over the place. She is also going to be, she runs workshops. Hop onto this website, but I cannot tell you enough. What I love about her newsletter is I'm going to tell you, she is the guru of attendance in the state of Maine. And I know that we have national people that are very, very strong in their knowledge. But what I love about Jess Anderson's work with Count Me In is it's in our own backyards. So she understands the challenges that we are facing. She understands the barriers, and she has so many resources that are right there, free for your taking. She also offers the opportunity for you to connect directly with her. Your school could work one-on-one with her. She has opportunities for short-term coaching. And that's X number of dollars a month. Or she could also set you up on a year-long calendar where you meet with her individually throughout the entire year, looking at your systems practices. What are things that you could change? What's working well for you? And what can she do to support you? And the stories she tells me about like chronic absenteeism, one of my favorite stories is she was working with a local school in Maine that their rates of chronic absenteeism were alarming. And they reached out to Jess, and she looked at the way students attending a career technical education, the CTE programming, were being coded in their absence. They were being marked absent for half a day every day. Do you think that might impact your chronic absenteeism rates? You bet it will. So Jess has an eye where she can spot things that maybe when we're in the trenches, it's not as easy to see. But I cannot sing the praises of Count Me In. If you reach out to her, she will provide you with a 30-minute session for free. So again, free is for me. I love, love, love when we have experts that are willing to help point you in the right direction. I would like to close with just a reminder that, remember, guys, we each hold a vital role in increasing attendance. It's not a one-person deal. It's a team thing. What can you focus on today to support increased attendance in Maine schools tomorrow? And in doing so, access the MEAC website, which is going to be in your resources, but access the MEAC website so that we can help provide the resources. You don't have to reinvent everything. Let us give you the step in the right direction so you can do the good work. And with that, I close in saying, do you have any questions you might have that you would like to pose? We just attended a conference last week at Sunday River. And the gentleman looked at us and he said, you need to know I have a degree in counseling, which means I can wait. By the same token, I will tell you, Mother Nature may not be smiling upon us with, oh gosh, what do we have right now? I think our weather right now is like, I know I'm showing 75 degrees. So unless I hear strong objections, may I please give you the gift of 12 minutes to get outside, enjoy the sunshine, and enjoy your afternoon. Remember, check out our resources and think about what can you implement before the next time we come together, October 16th. Thank you so much for your time.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'm just going to turn this.